Picture this. It is January of 1521. You are standing on the frozen, wind-battered walls of a stone fortress, Alston Castle, right in the heart of royal Prussia. The air is so cold, it physically burns your lungs. And looking down from those stone ramparts, you see them. A massive, terrifying force emerging from the dense winter fog. 1,400 heavily armed Teutonic knights. These are professional medieval shock troops, cavalry, infantry, and siege artillery, all marching directly toward the castle's mill gate. They have already burned the surrounding towns. They have torched the local cathedral. And now, they are here to take this fortress by force. Inside the walls, the Polish garrison is outnumbered, terrified, and looking to their commander for salvation. And this is where history fractures. Because who is this warlord barking orders? Who is this military commander rationing out the stockpiled food, frantically directing the archers, and writing desperate letters to the King of Poland, begging for more artillery and lead? You would expect a battle-hardened general, but it is not. It is a 47-year-old Catholic canon, a practicing physician, and a regional bureaucrat. His name is Nicholas Copernicus. It is an incredibly jarring image, one that completely breaks the mind. Because when you hear that name, you picture a quiet, lonely scholar, wrapped in a heavy cloak, sitting in a dark, silent tower, peering up at the night sky. We think of the man who sparked the scientific revolution by slowly working out the mathematics that would dethrone the Earth from the center of the universe. We absolutely do not think of a frontline military commander repelling a violent siege. That total disconnect is exactly why we are here today. Welcome to Legendary Lives Unveiled, where we pull back the shroud on history's most enigmatic figures. If you are ready to shatter your preconceived notions and explore the dark, tragic, and profound truths of the past, please like, subscribe, and share this video. Your support allows us to continue unearthing these hidden histories. Today, we are going to look at the newly uncovered manuscripts, the scientific analyses, and the biographical records to reveal the man who literally moved the earth. Because the story we were taught in school is barely a fraction of the truth. Copernicus was not just a stargazer. He was a pioneering economist, a practicing physician who treated royalty and the poor alike, and an administrator running an entire geopolitical region. He was a man deeply embroiled in the religious paranoia of the Protestant Reformation. And, perhaps most surprisingly, he was consumed by a tragic, forbidden romance that the church actively tried to erase from history. His life was one of profound, almost impossible contradiction. He lived, suspended between opposing forces, a loyal Catholic canon serving the church, yet situated right in the middle of the chaotic, violent splintering of the Protestant Reformation. He was a man desperately seeking elegant mathematical order in the heavens, while his earthly life was consumed by war, political intrigue, economic collapse, and intense personal heartbreak. You simply cannot understand his astronomical revolution if you separate it from the earthly chaos he navigated every single day. His origin story defies all expectations. Born on February 19, 1473, in the wealthy inland port city of Turin, he was part of the Hanseatic League, sitting right on the Vistula River. Born into a German-speaking family, his identity was instantly tangled. Because of the recent conflicts in the 13 Years' War, Turin had become part of Royal Prussia, an autonomous region under the Polish crown. He was culturally German, politically loyal to the Polish king, and geographically sitting on a massive trade fault line. But the defining tragedy strikes when he is just 10 years old. His father, a highly successful copper merchant who helped negotiate treaties for the Polish king, suddenly dies. Young Nicholas and his siblings are left orphaned, placed under the guardianship of his maternal uncle. And this uncle, was terrifying. His name was Lucas Watsonrode. He would eventually become the Prince Bishop of Warmia, but he was no gentle pastoral priest. He was a ruthless political operator, so formidable that the Grand Master of the Teutonic Knights literally referred to him as the devil incarnate. He was a close advisor to 3 successive Polish kings, a man of immense wealth, intense political cunning, and fierce ambitions. When he took over the future of Nicholas and his brother Andreas, he wasn't just raising nephews. He was systematically cultivating high-level political assets for his bishopric. Uncle Lucas mapped out a staggering, elite educational journey for Copernicus, an academic world tour of the Renaissance. In 1491, Copernicus goes to the University of Krakow, studying church law and getting his first real taste of astronomy and mathematics. But Krakow wasn't enough for Uncle Lucas. To guarantee a steady lifelong income, Lucas secures Nicholas a position as a canon at the Frombork Cathedral and immediately sends him to Italy. By 1496, he is at the University of Bologna, studying canon law and Greek, and crucially, studying astronomy with Domenico Maria Novara, a professor already quietly questioning the established orthodox views of the universe. In 1501, he moves to the University of Padua to study medicine. Finally, in 1503, he earns his doctorate in canon law from the University of Ferrara. Law, medicine, languages, mathematics, astronomy. To the modern mind, this curriculum seems scattered. But in the late 15th century, this was the ultimate pragmatic training for a high-level administrator. By making Copernicus a canon of the Wormine Cathedral chapter, Uncle Lucas drafted him into the executive branch of a semi-autonomous state. The chapter was the governing body of the entire territory of Warmia. They owned vast agricultural estates, collected taxes, ran the judicial system, and managed the regional economy. Copernicus handled the administrative, diplomatic, and legal needs, using his canon law doctorate to negotiate treaties and handle ecclesiastical disputes, and the medical degree. It was entirely self-serving for Uncle Lucas. Highly trained, university-educated physicians were incredibly rare in Northern Europe. By sending his nephew to Padua, Lucas ensured the bishopric had a world-class elite doctor permanently on staff. When Copernicus returns to Warmia, he becomes a high-level government executive, riding on horseback to inspect agricultural estates and acting as a magistrate, adjudicating petty disputes between farmers over land borders. Yet, as a practicing physician, he treated the local poor for free, alongside his uncle, subsequent bishops, and political figures across Prussia. Surviving prescriptions written in his own hand reveal wild, exotic ingredients: crushed sapphire, red coral, emeralds, pearls, mixed with traditional herbs like rhubarb and myrrh. Influenced by ancient authorities like Galen and the humoral theory of medicine, he treated sickness as an imbalance of 4 humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. These crushed gemstones were high-status Renaissance remedies, very expensive placebos believed to have potent, magical stabilizing properties. Here lies a profound, brilliant irony. In medicine, Copernicus was highly conservative, strictly following Galen and Avicenna. He trusted the ancients implicitly with the human body. Yet, when he looked up at the stars, he fundamentally rejected the ancient authority of Ptolemy. He was willing to destroy the ancient architecture of the heavens, but he wouldn't dare question the ancient architecture of human anatomy. Astronomical research was, for Copernicus, merely an avocation, a magnificent, world-changing hobby pursued in the absolute margins of a profoundly busy professional life. He was essentially managing the provisioning funds of an entire province, diagnosing severe illnesses, and prescribing complex treatments. It was like a modern-day CEO running a massive regional government, negotiating international trade treaties, and acting as the chief medical officer. And then, late at night by candlelight, he casually tried to rewrite the fundamental laws of quantum physics. But this overwhelming, exhausting schedule wasn't a distraction. It placed him at the very center of massive geopolitical crises, forcing him to apply his genius to urgent earthly problems. The bureaucratic competence he developed is exactly what led him to become that military commander, which brings us back to that siege. In 1519, the Polish-Teutonic War breaks out. The Teutonic Knights, a highly militarized monastic order led by Grand Master Albrecht Hohenzollern, invade Warmia in a brutal scorched earth conflict. They literally burn the town of Frombork to the ground, including Copernicus's own house. He loses nearly everything and is forced to retreat to the fortified castle at Ulsten. As the most competent administrator in the chapter, they make him the wartime commander of the castle. He approaches military defense with the exact same meticulous, analytical rigor that he applies to the geometry of the planets. He doesn't panic. He takes inventory. He writes a detailed treatise on the location of deserted fiefs, mathematically figuring out how to manage agricultural collapse so his people don't starve. He aggressively stockpiles food and ammunition, doubles the size of the castle guard, and writes directly to King Sigismund I of Poland, explicitly stating his absolute loyalty, a dangerous act if the castle fell. When the Teutonic Knights finally assault the Millgate in January 1521, they are met by a fully prepared, highly organized defense directed by a mathematician. They break through the outer gate, but the Polish forces repel them so fiercely with disciplined defensive fire that the Knights abandon the assault entirely. The siege is broken. Copernicus literally saves the city. But the aftermath of this war leads to another crisis, showcasing his terrifying intellectual range. The war utterly devastates the local economy. To fund their campaign, the Teutonic Knights engaged in a sort of 16th century economic terrorism, actively flooding the market with debased currency, minting coins secretly mixed with cheap copper. Post-war Prussia is facing massive inflation and a total currency collapse. Who do the local leaders turn to? The guy who just saved the castle. In 1522, and later expanded in a major 1526 treatise, Copernicus writes a document called Monetae Cudendae Ratio, which translates to On the Minting of Coin. Observing the sheer chaos of different mints, issuing old pure coins and new copper-laced coins under the exact same state-mandated face value, Copernicus formulates a principle we now know as Gresham's Law. Though named after Thomas Gresham, an English financier who described it 70 years later, Copernicus figured it out first. Bad money drives out good. He realized human nature dictates behavior. If a Prussian merchant has two coins, an older 95% pure silver coin, and a newly minted 50% silver debased coin, both legally worth 1 shilling, they will give the baker the cheap copper one. They will take the pure silver coin, run home, and hide it. Or worse, they melt it down into bullion to sell abroad for a massive profit. As a result, all the pure silver rapidly vanishes from circulation. Pure silver was hemorrhaging out of Prussia. To fix this, he advised the Prussian Diet and the Polish king that they had to take drastic measures, completely abolish the old debased coins, establish a single centralized mint to control the supply, and strictly maintain a unified silver ratio. In the same treatise, he formulated an early version of the quantity theory of money. He realized that if you drastically increase the volume of coins in circulation without a corresponding increase in actual goods like grain or iron, it inevitably causes inflation because the money loses its purchasing power. He wrote this roughly 250 years before Adam Smith published The Wealth of Nations. Just think about the mental agility this requires. You are a doctor. You are recovering from a brutal military siege where people were trying to kill you. Your house has been burned to the ground. Your region is economically ruined, and your response is to casually invent modern macroeconomic theory to stabilize the currency of an entire nation. What it truly demonstrates is his fundamental, unshakable belief that the universe is governed by underlying rational principles. Whether it is the economy of Prussia, the defense of a castle, or the orbits of the planets, Copernicus believed that if you strip away the superficial chaos, you can find the elegant mathematical rules that govern the system. He was actively solving the earthly chaos of war and inflation. But when he looked up at the night sky, he saw a different kind of chaos. An intellectual chaos that deeply offended his sense of order. And that intellectual chaos was the Ptolemaic system. By around 1514, right in the middle of all his bureaucratic work, years before the war even started, Copernicus quietly circulates a handwritten pamphlet to a few trusted friends. It is called the Commentariolus, or the Little Commentary. And in this tiny, unassuming pamphlet, he drops an intellectual bomb. The Earth is not the center of the universe. It rotates on its axis, and it revolves around the sun. To understand the magnitude of this, we must understand Claudius Ptolemy. For 1400 years, the smartest people on Earth believed the Ptolemaic geocentric model. Earth in the dead center, completely unmoving, with the sun, moon, and planets orbiting around us. And people believed it because it actually worked for predicting eclipses and planetary positions. But mechanically, it was a mathematical nightmare. The core problem Ptolemy faced in the 2nd century was observational reality. If you stand on Earth and track the planets, they do not move in smooth circles across the sky. Sometimes a planet like Mars will appear to slow down, stop, move backward for a few weeks, a phenomenon we call retrograde motion, and then stop again and move forward. But the ancient Greeks held a deeply sacred philosophical dogma: uniform circular motion. The heavens were perfect. Therefore, everything must move in perfect circles at constant speeds. To explain retrograde motion while keeping Earth at the center, Ptolemy had to invent a series of bizarre geometric cheats. He proposed that a planet moved in a small circle called an epicycle, and the center of that epicycle moved along a much larger circle around the Earth called a deferent. It was a system of circles moving on circles, much like a dizzying carnival ride where the teacups spin while the entire platform spins. But even this cheat did not perfectly match the sky. The planets still appeared to speed up and slow down, so Ptolemy introduced his most controversial device, the equant. The equant was an imaginary mathematical point in empty space, located off-center from the Earth. Ptolemy declared that the center of a planet's epicycle didn't actually move at a constant physical speed. Instead, it only appeared to move at a constant angular speed if you were looking at it from this ghost point in space. The planet was physically speeding up and slowing down, but mathematically sweeping out equal angles from an illusion. From Copernicus's perspective, the equant was a monster. It was mathematical duct tape. It explicitly violated the ancient purity of uniform circular motion. Ironically, Copernicus was a profound conservative when it came to geometry. He wanted to rid the universe of the equant. In the Commentariolus, he shows that if you place the sun at the center and have the Earth orbit the sun while spinning on its axis, you naturally explain retrograde motion. We are simply on an inside track. When Earth passes Mars, Mars merely appears to move backward against the background stars. You do not need a massive epicycle. It is an incredibly elegant, beautiful geometric solution. But here, we hit one of the most massive, mind-blowing twists in the entire history of science. A twist that completely shatters the traditional Eurocentric narrative of the scientific revolution. Copernicus needed extremely precise mathematical devices to make his new sun-centered system work perfectly without Ptolemy's equant. For centuries, we assumed he invented this complex math from scratch, sitting alone in his freezing tower in Frombork. But modern analysis of his final manuscript, De Revolutionibus, reveals something stunning. His mathematics bear an impossible, undeniable resemblance to the work of Muslim astronomers who lived hundreds of years before him during the Islamic Golden Age. When historians translated manuscripts from the Moraga Observatory, a legendary 13th century astronomical center in modern-day Iran, and later works from Damascus, they found geometric models virtually identical to the ones Copernicus used. Specifically, the work of a 13th century Persian polymath named Nasir al-Din al-Tusi and a 14th century Damascene astronomer named Ibn al-Shatir. Ibn al-Shatir, working as a timekeeper at the Umayyad Mosque in Damascus, developed a completely new geometric model for the Moon and the planet Mercury, using secondary epicycles to eliminate the dreaded equant. When researchers looked at Copernicus's models for the Moon and Mercury in De Revolutionibus, they are identical, not conceptually similar, geometrically identical. Copernicus uses the exact same vector constructions to reduce lunar distance fluctuations. It goes even deeper. To replace the equant and convert linear back-and-forth oscillation into uniform circular motion, Copernicus uses a brilliant mathematical device, a small circle rotating inside a much larger circle that is exactly twice its radius. If you track a single point on the edge of that smaller inner wheel, it moves back and forth in a perfectly straight line. This device was invented by Nasir al-Din al-Tusi in the 13th century. We literally call it the Tusi couple. Copernicus uses the exact same device for the exact same purpose in the exact same planetary models. The smoking gun, however, lies in the diagrams themselves. In 1973, a historian named Willy Hartner compared the geometric diagrams drawn by al-Tusi in his Arabic manuscripts with those drawn by Copernicus in his Latin manuscripts. The alphabetic notation labeling the geometric points matches perfectly. Where al-Tusi uses the Arabic letter alif, Copernicus uses the Latin A. Where al-Tusi uses the Arabic ba, Copernicus uses b. It is a direct, one-to-one translation of the geometry, point for point. Could this be a coincidence? Independent discovery happens, like calculus with Newton and Leibniz. But the exact matching of the diagrams, the identical alphabetic labeling, and the highly specific sequence of epicycles makes independent discovery statistically, almost impossibly, improbable. But Copernicus did not read Arabic, so how did he get the math? The most plausible route is through the Byzantine Empire. Byzantine scholars traveled east to the Moraga Observatory, learned these theories, and translated al-Tusi's Arabic works into Byzantine Greek. In the decades surrounding the fall of Constantinople in 1453, Greek scholars fled west, bringing their manuscripts to Italy. Remember Copernicus's 7-year academic world tour? He learned Greek at Bologna. He studied under Domenico Maria Novara, deeply embedded in the network of humanists translating ancient texts. Copernicus almost certainly encountered the framework of the Tusi couple and Ibn al-Shatir's models in these Greek translations. But the crucial difference, the mark of his actual genius, is what he did with those tools. Ibn al-Shatir and al-Tusi used these brilliant geometric tools to perfect the geocentric model. They were trying to fix Ptolemy. Copernicus takes those exact same Islamic mathematical tools, flips the entire cosmological board over, and uses them to violently dismantle the Earth-centered cosmos. He stood squarely on the shoulders of the great Muslim polymaths. So, he has the math, he has the theory. It is 1514. Why on earth does he wait until 1543, nearly 30 years later, on his literal deathbed, to publish the full proof in De Revolutionibus? The standard myth is that he was terrified of being burned at the stake by the Catholic Inquisition. But the historical sources tell a far more human, incredibly dramatic story of intense religious paranoia, betrayal, and a deeply tragic, forbidden romance. In 1517, Martin Luther nails his 95 Theses to the church door in Wittenberg, and the Protestant Reformation explodes. Surrounding territories, including Ducal Prussia right next door, convert to Lutheranism. The Catholic bishopric of Warmia suddenly finds itself an isolated, vulnerable Catholic island surrounded by a hostile Protestant sea. The church becomes intensely defensive, hunting for internal dissent, burning Protestant books, and enforcing strict moral discipline. The open atmosphere of Renaissance humanism morphs into a suffocating atmosphere of surveillance, and it is right in the middle of this dark, paranoid atmosphere that a woman named Anna Schilling enters Copernicus's life. Between 1531 and 1538, Anna becomes a constant presence in his massive brick tower in Frombork. Officially, she is his housekeeper, a distant relative, the daughter of a wealthy Dutch immigrant merchant from Gdansk. But unofficially, the reality was entirely different. Anna was wealthy in her own right, highly educated, separated from her husband, and crucially, she deeply shared Copernicus's passion for astronomy. In this freezing, isolated corner of the Baltic coast, surrounded by bureaucrats and paranoid church enforcers, Anna Schilling was likely Copernicus's only true intellectual companion. But the church could not tolerate it. The hammer falls when a new bishop takes over, Johannes Dantiscus. Dantiscus is a theatrical hypocrite. In his youth in Spain, he was famous for his lecherous disposition and even had an illegitimate daughter. But now, his job is to enforce counter-Reformation discipline. In 1538, he discovers Copernicus's relationship with Anna and decides to make an example of his most famous canon. Dantiscus sets spies within the cathedral. Copernicus's own colleagues report back to the bishop. Dantiscus sends threatening letters, demanding Copernicus banish Anna immediately, posing an existential threat to his livelihood. Copernicus fights back. He uses delaying tactics. He lies, claiming he sent her away, only for the spies to report that Anna is still visiting him secretly under the cover of darkness. He risks his entire comfortable existence just to keep her in his life. But then, a colleague, Alexander Scultatus, is charged with Lutheran sympathies just for having Protestant literature in his house, and his career is destroyed. The danger is real. In 1539, completely heartbroken, the 66-year-old Copernicus is forced to officially banish Anna Schilling to Gdansk. How much did the loss of this intellectual partner snarl his scientific work? Here is a man approaching 70, holding a universe-breaking manuscript, and the one person who understood the math is brutally stripped away by a paranoid bureaucracy. He is left entirely alone. The church's vindictiveness did not even end with his death. Years later, when Anna tried to return to Frombork to sell a house, the church refused her entry, calling her a deranged temptress who might ensnare other priests. They systematically tried to erase her from his legacy. Grieving and isolated, Copernicus is ready to let his massive manuscript die with him in a drawer. He flat out refuses to publish it, and then an enemy of his church knocks on his door. In the spring of 1539, a 25-year-old brilliant mathematician named George Joachim Rheticus arrives in Warmia. Rheticus is a professor from the University of Wittenberg, the absolute epicenter of the Protestant Reformation. By crossing into Catholic Warmia, Rheticus is risking severe imprisonment just to talk math. He brings diplomatic gifts, a new Greek edition of Euclid, and a Greek edition of Ptolemy's Almagest. Despite the 40-year age gap and the dangerous religious divide, they bond profoundly. Rheticus becomes the devoted surrogate son Copernicus never had. In the mornings, Copernicus teaches the theoretical foundations. In the evenings, Rheticus, a master of trigonometry, helps refine the complex calculations. Rheticus realizes this is the most important scientific document in human history. To overcome Copernicus's paralyzing fear of being mocked by the academic community, Rheticus deploys a brilliant strategy. In 1540, he publishes the Narratio Prima, or the first report, a 100-page trial balloon summarizing the heliocentric theory. The academic reaction is positive. Finally, bolstered by Rheticus and his one remaining close friend, Bishop Tiedemann Gysi, Copernicus relents. He agrees to publish De Revolutionibus Orbium Coelestium, on the revolutions of the heavenly spheres. But here, the story takes a dark turn into one of the most infamous betrayals in the history of science. Rheticus has to return to his teaching duties in Leipzig. He hands the printing oversight to a trusted colleague in Nuremberg, a prominent Lutheran theologian named Andreas Osiander. Copernicus believed his model was absolute physical reality. The Earth actually moves through space. But Osiander panics, terrified that claiming the Earth physically moves will enrage theologians and get the book banned. The unthinkable happens. Without telling Copernicus or Rheticus, Osiander secretly writes his own preface, slips it into the very front of the book, and leaves it unsigned. He claims the heliocentric model is merely a mathematical hypothesis, an instrumental trick designed solely to save the appearances. It completely neuters the revolutionary physical claim of the work. When Rheticus and Bishop Gysi see the fake preface, they are furious. Gysi writes a blistering complaint to the Nuremberg City Council, demanding it be ripped out, but the damage is done. In December 1542, Copernicus suffers a severe stroke, leaving him partially paralyzed. He is isolated in his house. Anna is gone. Rheticus is gone. Gysi is far away. Meanwhile, the massive, heavy volumes begin their long journey overland. The cinematic legend states that on May 24th, 1543, the very first printed copy of De Revolutionibus finally arrives. It is rushed to Copernicus's room and placed directly into his paralyzed hands. He wakes from his coma just long enough to see the physical culmination of decades of toil, peacefully closes his eyes and dies, blissfully unaware of Osiander's sabotaged preface. The immediate backlash to the book actually came from the Protestant reformers. Martin Luther absolutely hated it, pointing to the book of Joshua, where Joshua commands the sun to stand still in the sky, not the earth. Luther's top theologian, Philip Melanchthon, suggested that governments should repress such impudence of mind by physical force. Yet, the Protestant astronomers at Wittenberg loved the math. Embracing Osiander's fake preface, they created the Wittenberg interpretation, stripping out the physical reality and using the math to create the highly accurate Prutenic tables. It wasn't until 1616 when Galileo Galilei built a telescope and provided undeniable observational proof of physical reality by looking at Venus and Jupiter that the Catholic Church finally panicked. Only then did they place De Revolutionibus on the Index of Forbidden Books, where it remained banned until the 1800s. Nicholas Copernicus was a warlord who saved a city, an economic visionary who understood inflation centuries before Adam Smith, a man who built his universe-shattering theory on the mathematical brilliance of Islamic scholars, a heartbroken intellectual who had his only true companion ripped away, and the spark that ignited the scientific revolution. The great German writer Goethe summed it up perfectly. By accepting Copernicus, mankind was forced to waive the tremendous privilege of being the center of the universe. Copernicus proved that the universe is far more complex and far less focused on us than our own senses deceive us into believing. But as you look up at the night sky, consider the tragedy of Anna Schilling, erased from the historical record because the rigid dogma of her time couldn't handle an educated woman standing beside a great man. How many other brilliant intellectual partnerships have been entirely erased from the history of science by social and religious paranoia? If this journey has changed how you see history, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Who do you think is history's most misunderstood genius? Keep exploring with us here on Legendary Lives Unveiled, and we will see you in the next video.